Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Doctor Who Rankings. Now, if it wasn't obvious by my shortened hair, yesterday's video and today's video are filmed months apart, which is kind of bizarre. So I do apologize if my train of thought is a little different than where it was yesterday. Obviously, like I said, I look different. I think there's a new microphone set up than yesterday's video. I have a flag behind me to try to change the acoustics in my studio here. But anyways, that being said, continuing where we left off yesterday, Series 8. Let's talk about it. Now, yesterday's video, one thing I forgot to mention that I really do like about Series 7 is the fact that, in my opinion, and this is an opinion that I have gained recently, it wasn't an opinion I really had when I filmed yesterday's video. I think, controversial take here, I think Series 7 is the best looking Doctor Who, or the best looking Doctor Who season before the Chibnall era. So one of the praises of the Chibnall era, despite all of the criticisms, is that it looks very good based on the cameras they used and just the directing styles, not necessarily shot composition, but the cinematography, that sort of thing. And I think Series 7, especially Series 7B, the latter half where Clara is the companion, I think it looks really good. And I wanted to make that note of Series 7 in today's video because of the fact that, in my opinion, Series 8 takes a digression, or a regression rather, with its cinematography and with the way that it looks. There are very specific episodes I want to note. If I don't, I think Time Heist is way too color corrected. I think In the Forest of the Night is way too color corrected. Mummy on the Orient Express, Into the Dalek, they all have kind of, if you recall Series 1, it almost has kind of like this Vaseline filter over the camera. Series 8 almost feels like that, but in an HD sense. It looks like they seem to correct it a little more than they probably should have, and I wanted to criticize that just to give some props to yesterday and Series 7. But let's talk about Series 8. We are starting bottom to top as we have in all of our videos, and at the bottom, it's gotta be In the Forest of the Night. So the name of this episode comes from a poem. I think it's The Tiger, and I can't remember who wrote it. I actually sang it when I was in choir as a kid. It was a song based on the poem, and that's where this line comes from, In the Forest of the Night, and that's why there's hints at beasts in the woods, whatever. Anyways, the episode itself is not good, is not very good at all. The premise is a long shot to begin with. I really don't love the premise of this episode. I don't love the way that the story splits the Doctor and Clara up the way that it does. It's a very cool concept. If it were to mesh together very well, it doesn't. I don't think Maeve is a very likable character, especially not the way that the Doctor treats her, which in turn makes Capaldi come across really negatively in his portrayal of the Doctor in this episode. His delivery on some of these lines is not very good. I don't think any of the other kids are very likable. I think Danny is not... We'll talk... So Samuel Anderson's portrayal of Danny Pink. Here's the thing. I think I like Danny Pink as a character. The more I rewatch Doctor Who, I liked him to begin with. I started to like him less. I'm starting to like him more. But at the same time, I don't like his portrayal. And I used to think that it was the writing of the character, which it most certainly could be. But the more I watch the stuff that Samuel Anderson is in, I genuinely think that his portrayal of Danny Pink is one of his better performances. I don't like Samuel Anderson that much. I do like his chemistry with Jenna Coleman. I do like some of the episodes he's in with Peter Capaldi. I think he's great in The Caretaker. I think he does a great job in the finale. I don't like him in The Forest of the Night. Clara, in my opinion, is the most sympathetic character in this entire episode. I'm a Clara defender, keep in mind. I actually do like Clara. There's a lot of criticism, especially with Series 8 and Series 9, about the... just kind of the focus on Clara's home life rather than her travels with the Doctor. That's a source of criticism for this series. I disagree with the fact that that should be criticized because with Russell T Davies, especially Series 1, 2, a little less so with 3, but then definitely again with Series 4, it was centered around the companion. It was about the Doctor, but it was more so centered around the companion and the companion's family. Now, the problem with Clara is she doesn't really have a family life. We kind of see it in Time of the Doctor with the Christmas dinner. Her mother is dead. We know that from Series 7. She has her father, who is recast by the end of Series 7 and into the specials. And then we have her grandmother. We see her grandmother again once in Series 8, but basically her entire home life circles around Dani. And I think that's why it's controversial, because it's not necessarily about her family, it's about this home life that she is trying to build. Now, keep in mind, her character changes significantly from Series 7 into the specials, not just into Series 8, but into the 2013 specials, which I think is for the better. I don't think Clara is a very likable character when they reintroduce her in Series 7B, but I think the progression here, despite it being very, very different, is the right choice for the character. I think the bossiness that she brings to Series 7 and then into Series 8 into Series 9 is a lot better than it was in Series 7. I don't think she had a character in Series 7. Or at least it wasn't written well. It's a conversation for a different video, but that all to say that in this episode specifically, I think I like Clara the best of all of the characters. I think the storyline is poor. I think the visuals are overdone. I think the CGI is very bad. Nothing about this episode lands. It's very boring. The climax happens. There isn't a climax. There really isn't a climax this episode. They create tension by creating the escaped animals from the zoo, that sort of thing. They create tension with the disappearance of Maeve's sister. The message in this about not taking your meds is a little iffy. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this episode, if that wasn't clear. But that being said, I'm looking at my list here. It's the only episode from Series 8 that I have in F tier. So let's move up and see if I can find my next one here. Yeah, D tier. Let's go Robot of Sherwood. Some people really like this episode. Where's it at here? Robin Hood. There he is. Some people really like this episode because it's kind of campy. It's kind of fun. It kind of harkens back to just like the David Tennant days where they would just go back in time and he would have fun with it. I think Peter Capaldi is really good in this episode. I think I can't remember the name of the actor who plays Robin Hood in this episode. I think they play off each other really well. I think Clara kind of takes a back seat. I don't love her chemistry with the Doctor or her portrayal in this episode. It feels like, we just mentioned, Clara kind of progresses in a more like selfish but self-assured way in Series 8. We get that established with the first episode, we get it established with the second episode, we get it established with the rest of the series. In episode 3, it almost feels like the Clara that's being portrayed is the Clara from Series 7. She's a little too whimsical, she's a little too over the top with herself, a little too happy compared to how she is the rest of the series. I don't like that. I think the villain is campy. I don't necessarily think in a negative way, but the motivations are iffy. It feels like they came up with the concept for this episode and then the writing came after, and it kind of falls apart. I think the CGI is bad again. I think the acting of some of the, not just the extras, but some of just the minor characters in the prison, I think are really poorly portrayed. I don't really connect with any of the merry men sort of thing. It's not a very good episode in my opinion. It went for it, I suppose. I feel like I am in 12th century Nottinghamshire. Like I feel like the writing and the set design and all that, I feel like it puts me in that place, but at the same time, this episode has never done anything for me personally, and I just find it very, very boring and let down by especially the climax of this episode. So that one goes in D tier. Let's move up then to C tier. So that's a positive sign for Series 8. Let's go to, where's it at here? I just had it. Let's go to The Caretaker. Now, I say Caretaker is a C tier episode. However, I really do like it. like it's one of those. It's fun to rewatch. It's not a good episode in my opinion, but it's one of those I would rewatch. Um, it's earthbound, so you kind of feel like it's homely. Home, no, homely means homey is the word I'm looking for. It's grounded. I mean, it's an alien show, but it's grounded on Earth. You feel like you're a part of this school. It's kind of a backdoor pilot for Class, actually. We get the interactions with Coal Hill School. I don't love Courtney Woods. We'll talk about Courtney Woods more with Kill the Moon. I think the Doctor's interactions with her in this episode are actually kind of fun. I like the little nod to the 12th Doctor seeing someone. Is it Adrian? The coworker who kind of looks like Matt Smith in the 11th Doctor. I like that little nod. I really do like Danny Pink's portrayal in this episode. I think his chemistry with both Jenna Coleman and Peter Capaldi is great. The Skovaks Blitzer, excuse me, very hard word for me to say with my accent. I don't think is a very threatening villain. I don't think the design of it is very threatening either. It's kind of a cute robot killer alien, that sort of thing. It works. As kind of a plot device, it works. But what I like about this episode most is how it brings Doctor Who back to Earth. Really, I mean, you see little hints of Clara's home life in Into the Dalek, and specifically in Listen, where she has the date with Danny. This is where it's really grounded back, and part of why a lot of people don't like this episode is because this is really where the whole Clara Who thing starts to ground itself in Clara's home life. I like that. I am a drama fan. I like when Doctor Who does stuff like that. I don't like when it's oversaturated with that. We'll talk about that more specifically with Series 9 and then into Series 10, early Series 10, we should talk about. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday. But I like The Caretaker. I don't think it's a very good episode. I don't think the writing's very strong. I don't think the threat is as great as they portray it to be in the episode. It's one I like rewatching because it's cute, it's simple, it's Doctor Who back on Earth in a school. I like that. It's kind of like School Reunion, but better. No, I'm kidding. It's not. It's not better than School Reunion, but it's got a similar feel. If School Reunion were updated for a more modern, mature audience, which is what they were going for here. They didn't quite strike it on the head. I don't want to get that misconstrued. I'm not saying that this is School Reunion. It's just Doctor Who in a school. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Let's move up then. Look at my list here. Deep Breath. Let's talk about Deep Breath. I have it right below Into the Dalek. So these are also C tier. So I'll put Into the Dalek above. We'll talk about them both back to back. So Deep Breath. Deep Breath, from a production standpoint, is a nightmare of an episode. The cinematography is weird. So if you'll recall, there were 2 Victorian episodes in the Matt Smith era. One in London, one in Yorkshire. They were both with Clara, but one was with the Victorian version of Clara, The Snowmen. The Snowmen was visually very good. It had kind of this bluish white filter. It felt very Christmassy, but at the same time, there was kind of like this little underlying air to it. And then fast forward ahead to the Crimson Horror, where everything is very dull. It's in the north of England. Oh, that was really bad. Yorkshire. It was very color diluted to kind of give more emphasis on just the color red and the Crimson Horror in the episode. Very dull, very factory-like. Deep Breath, the still you see here is very blue. Deep Breath is almost too brown. It's trying to find somewhere in between, visually, in between the other 2 Victorian episodes from the previous era. What that causes then is, how am I trying to word this? It's too brown, and they color correct everything way over the top. It gets really blue when Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, is going through his ruminative phases. And what I mean by that is the scene where he is trying to figure out where his face came from when he steals the jacket from the homeless man. And then at the end here, which is what you see in this still, which is where he's ruminating on whether or not he's a good man, and he whether or not you believe he threw the man off the ship or whatever, the end of the episode, that sort of thing. And then the ending scene back when they're in modern time in Glasgow is very blue. But the rest of the episode, to me, is very brown, especially when they do the exterior shots of just London in general. And then all the stuff with the Tyrannosaur. The CGI on the dinosaur is actually very, very good for the time. It won an award. The combustion part is a little questionable. One thing that is underrated CGI-wise is the ship itself, the hot air balloon with human skin. I think that looks very good. One thing to note, I do want to check something real quick. Are we even recording? Yes, okay, sorry. I got really worried that my sound was gone for a second. Sorry to interrupt that. One thing I want to note about this episode, apart from cinematography-wise, is the editing. When I watched this for the first time, there's a scene right at the beginning when the Doctor reintroduces Clara coming out of the TARDIS, and he turns, and Madame Vastra is with him. There's a slow-mo shot for almost no reason, and I think what they were going for, because they do it again when the Doctor faints in the same scene, what I think they were going for is just a sense of the Doctor's mindset. I appreciate the effort. It doesn't look good, and we see more editing problems, specifically with the historical episodes as we go forward. The Woman Who Lived in Series 9 is another one. We'll talk about the editing issues tomorrow. But in this episode, there are slow-mo takes and weird camera angles for proper directorial reasons, but they don't look good. They really don't look good. They're not edited well. I don't like this episode visually. The writing, people are up and down on the Madame Vastra scene, the veil scene, if you know what I'm talking about. I think Jenna Coleman is very good in this episode, despite what people want to say about her change of character. I think her portrayal is very good, very understandable. However, I do understand the criticism. She already met two past versions of the Doctor, and presumably all of the versions of the Doctor, when she goes back in the time stream in Name of the Doctor. So why then is she so dissatisfied with the change of the 11th Doctor into the 12th? To me, that is somewhat of a plot hole. However, I think Jenna Coleman's I love Jenna Coleman, by the way. I think she's the best actress, the most talented actress to ever take on the companion role in Doctor Who, classic and modern. That's my hot take of the day. I think Clara is inconsistently written. I understand that. I think that some people don't like her for her certain portrayals. I think Jenna Coleman does exactly what she needs to do with the material she's given. I think she's good in this episode. This episode's very long. I don't love the threat in this episode. I do like that they kind of harken back to the girl in the fireplace. I don't like Peter Capaldi's interactions with the villains in this episode. I don't like the way that they portray the 12th Doctor in this episode. It's too long. It has a lot to go for it. I love the ending scene. I love the ending scene with Matt Smith. I do. I think it was necessary. I think it was very well done. I love its inclusion at the end of this episode. One thing to note, so Jenna Coleman was originally supposed to leave at the end of Series 8. And they put hints of that in the end of this episode. The whole episode, to be honest with you. That's why they imprinted this. And then she decided to stay on for the Christmas special, and they were going to write her out of the Christmas special. And then she decided to stay on for Series 9. That's why we have so many inconsistencies with Clara leaving the TARDIS and coming back to the TARDIS. The biggest problem with Clara's character is Jenna Coleman's agent. Genuinely. If it wasn't for Jenna Coleman's agent, I think the character of Clara would be so much more consistently written. That's the problem, is They weren't sure with her filming of the show Victoria if she was going to be able to stay on through the entire 8th series, through into the Christmas special, through Series 9 in its entirety. That's why it's all over the place. That's why they implant stuff like that in this episode. Let's talk then about Into the Dalek. We move then into a little bit of Clara's home life. We meet Danny Pink for the first time. I think the portrayal is fine in this episode, as little as it is. The acting in this episode from all of the extras is a little too over the top for me. Is it Benjamin Satterley? Is that the name of the actor from Game of Thrones? He's in this episode. I don't love Journey Blue's portrayal. I think she's a little manic. To me, it's not quite Shatner overacting, but the actress is really into it the whole time and just never seems to take a step back. And that's fine when you're portraying a soldier character, but when none of your contemporaries are doing the same, then it stands out like a sore thumb, and it's not great. I don't love the portrayal of the Dalek in this episode. I like the idea of this episode. I like the execution of it a lot less, which is something to say for most of these episodes, in my opinion. I think the ideas are there. I don't think the scripts really support what we're seeing. I like the idea of a Dalek going rogue. I don't think the justification given in the writing, I don't think the pacing of this episode is very good. I like all the visuals in this one, actually. Once we get to the Dalek, I think the Dalek looks kind of weird. It's got that filter to it that I don't love, but I do love most of the visuals in the rest of the episode. When they're inside the Dalek casing, I think that is very good. Enough about those. Let's move up then to B tier. Kill the Moon. Here's my hot take. I actually kind of like Kill the Moon. So here's the weird thing, and I want to be very careful when I say this, because I'm not going to give my own opinions on this issue. A lot of people think that this is a metaphor for abortion, and it certainly could be. What I think is weird about people thinking that it's an abortion metaphor is if Doctor Who, of all shows in the world, to do an episode of their show defending abortion, or excuse me, defending pro-life, the very last show in the world to do it is Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a very liberal show. It's always been a very liberal show. Doctor Who is not the show that would intentionally put into its mythos a pro-life message. However, the episode does come across as a pro-life message. Now, the weird part of that in this episode is it's not about human offspring or sentient alien offspring. The fact that the pro-life message is about a single alien creature who they know nothing about, they don't know if it's hostile, they don't know its motivations at all, and Clara then is willing to let it live when billions of people on Earth, I can't remember if they give a population size of Earth in this episode, upwards of 8 billion people she's willing to let die for the sake of an unknown creature. That's a weird message, and I don't even think that necessarily fits in line with the pro-life message that a lot of people criticize this episode for. But like I said, Doctor Who is the last show in the world that would willingly do a pro-life message as one of its episodes. I don't love Clara's portrayal here. I think the visuals of this episode are very good. I think the CGI is of the better end of Series 8. I almost said Series 6. Series 8. I do kind of like... So here's where the conflict in my head comes. On one hand, you have this really cool idea of an extraplanetary body housing or being an alien egg, right? And all of the issues that would come out of that, all of the issues, I really like the idea that they have, it's such a big creature that all of the alien germs are like these spider things. I like that in concept. But at the same time, that extraplanetary body is the moon. The moon. the moon is an egg. To me, that doesn't make sense. And what even more so doesn't make sense is the fact that you have all of these. So in all of human history, so if you're a young earther, all 6,000 years, if you're an old earther, all 2 million years, 3 million years of humanity on Earth, you're telling me that for all that time, not only was this creature in the egg, and the egg never grew, but it never, like, there were no rumblings at all until it was about to hatch. Like, even for the last 50 to 100 years of this egg being in existence as the moon, there were no rumblings to cause all of this mass destruction on Earth. That it was a sudden event. And not just that it was a sudden event, but then once the creature leaves and lays an egg the same size, that all of the issues suddenly just constrict. You have this very specific window of time where this episode can take place and make sense, and then right before it happens, there's no consequences. Right after it happens, there's no consequences. Now keep in mind, in the timeline, and I just released a timeline of all of New Who on the channel. Feel free to go check it out. There will be links to other Doctor Who episodes on the bottom, I believe, left hand of your screen when this video comes to a close. This episode takes place in 2049, which is 30 years after the episode aired, 35 years, and 10 years before Waters of Mars, which is supposed to take place in 2059. So not only did humanity have this huge impact 10 years before they go to Mars, but there were no precautions taken about the moon. There was nothing talking about going to Mars, and Mars may be a moon, that sort of, or Mars might be an egg, that sort of. It just, like, the timeline doesn't fit to me. And you see problems with that later on, especially in the Chibnall era, where you have to kind of retcon ideas from previous episodes based on the stuff that happens in these ones. I think contained in its own story, Kill the Moon is actually fairly solid. I think the acting and the performances are pretty good. Courtney Woods is insufferable. If she was out of this episode, I think this episode would be received a lot better. It's a very serious episode. She's there for comic relief. It doesn't quite fit in the juxtaposition of those two things. However, when Kill the Moon becomes part of a greater series, that's when I think it falls apart. And for that reason, I don't like it very much. I still think it's got a lot to offer. I did say at the start that I do like Kill the Moon. Like I said, as its own episode, I like it. As part of a greater whole, I don't like it. I still think that it has enough quality to be put in B tier. That's my hot take of the day. Let's move up then to Last Christmas. This used to be my favorite Christmas special. Do I even have it on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't even have it on here, so I do apologize. Last Christmas, pretend it's right above Kill the Moon. Last Christmas is probably my favorite Christmas special to re-watch. It's kind of spooky. It's rooted in Alien, which they even reference in the episode itself. Like I mentioned, there are problems with Clara's portrayal in it, based mainly around Jenna Coleman's contract and the negotiations between her agent and the studio, that whatever behind the scenes nonsense you want to talk about. It reintroduces her at the start of the episode. She left, keep in mind. She was dismissed from the show at the end of Series 8. They bring her back in for the Christmas special, and then they write her out at the end of the Christmas special, but then they retcon that. So it's basically a reintroduction, a dismissal, and another reintroduction of Clara, all in the same episode, which causes some problems. I do think that all of the side characters, including Faye Marsay, are very likable. I know a lot of people have issues with the dance scene. I actually don't mind it. I think it's fine. The one thing I'm not entirely sure of is the inclusion of Santa Claus as a literal character. I know it happens in a dream, but as a literal character in this episode, I think Nick Frost's portrayal is fine. I just don't like the inclusion of Santa necessarily. It's a fine episode. Maybe I should have it lower than I do. I've always really liked it. So for personal biases, it might be because it was the first Christmas special I ever watched live. That's probably why. So here's my biases coming out. I try not to be biased on these episodes. I have it in B tier. I like Last Christmas. It's the one that I like returning to all the time. It's an easy watch. I'm putting it in B tier. Right above that, let's do Dark Water, Death in Heaven. And I'm going to put Death in Heaven above Dark Water. So, here's the thing. No. No. Sorry, other way around. Here's the thing. Missy's plan doesn't make any sense, right? Everything Missy does in this episode is for the attention of the Doctor, so why do it at all? Does that make any sense? It's like if you want yourself to fail, why go through this effort at all? And I'm sure there's an answer. I'm sure there's an answer, and the episode doesn't offer it. I think this episode is incredibly disrespectful to the entire show, specifically the Brigadier. The Brigadier is resurrected as a zombie at the end of this episode for no other reason than to reference the Brigadier. The Brigadier was sent off in the Series 6 finale. It was very good. It's the only good part of that episode. And yet he's brought back for a cheap pop at the end of this episode. I think Peter Capaldi is bad in the episode. I think Jenna Coleman is actually really good in this episode. I don't mind Samuel Anderson in this episode. I think he does a very good job of displaying the group. How would you describe grief for yourself? Does that make sense? So, terror? Terror is probably the best word I can come up with. Just the realization that he's dead and that sort of thing, and the consequences of being brought back to life but realizing he's going to have to die again, that sort of thing. I think he does portray it fairly well. The finale's a mess. I mean, the whole Cybermen exploding into clouds sort of thing, Osgood dying. I don't love it at all. I used to love Missy. I am less sympathetic to Missy nowadays. I really like Missy in Series 10, genuinely. I hate Missy in Series 9. And this episode just, especially retrospectively, feels very inconsequential. I think from beginning to end, the finale episode itself is a mess. Dark Water's a little better. Dark Water kills off Danny for just out of nowhere, except for plot convenience. And it's handled very, very well, in my opinion. I think Jenna Coleman's performance is possibly her best performance in the entire series. Her portrayal of grief, of longing, of desperation. Peter Capaldi is very good. He's a little clueless in this episode. He's kind of clueless the entire series, but he's really clueless at the start of this episode. I think Peter Capaldi's chemistry with Michelle Gomez is not good. I don't mind the whole 3W stuff. I think it's in there for just kind of cosmic horror rather than anything. It doesn't do anything. I think the music is fairly good in the first part. Like I said, I think the handling of Danny's death is done very well. I do like the volcano scene, even though the CGI is horrific. The sound effects are horrific. The soundscape is not good. However, the chemistry between Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman, very good. I like the first part. I think Samuel Anderson is even good in the little part that he has in this episode. And I do like the cliffhanger. I really do like the cliffhanger. It's too bad it kind of falls apart in the second half. Because I do like the first part. Genuinely, I could even put the first half up a tier from the second half. I like the first half. I really do. Second half falls apart. Let's move on then to Time Heist. Double checking. Yeah, let's go to Time Heist. Time Heist doesn't look so okay. So it's weird. Like, it has the potential to be visually stunning. The CGI in this episode is very good, and then they add a filter over the top of it that, like I said, it's that Vaseline like sheen filter, and it to me drags it down. The color correction in this episode is very poor. I think the villain is very good. That's my hot take of the day. I think the Teller is a very compelling villain for someone who doesn't say any words. Kira Braxos, I don't really get. I think the episode relies a little too much on the plot twist at the end of the episode. I think it treats itself as being better than it is. Does that make any sense? So it's like the Doctor was the architect all along. Wasn't that smart writing? It's one of those, like, you see Moffat's writing like that in... Did Moffat write this episode? Let me double check that Moffat wrote this episode. Time Heist Doctor Who. He certainly edited this episode. It was written by, Stephen Thompson and Stephen Moffat. So, from what I can gather, as an outside viewer who was not part of the writing process of this episode, all of the Stephen Thompson bits I really like about this episode. But the Stephen Moffat stuff, like the plot twists, that sort of thing, it's one of those, you see it in Sherlock, right? You see it when Sherlock starts to get very self-indulgent. It's got similar twists to this. Moffat is treating the audience as dumb. And I don't love that. I think the side characters are all right. They're fine. What's his name? Jonathan Bailey. I like Jonathan Bailey. I really like Jonathan Bailey in something like Broadchurch, excuse me. Keeley Hawes is, I think, the best of the secondary actors, the supporting cast. No, sorry. Keeley Hawes is good as Mrs. Delphox and Madame Kira Braxos. The one I'm thinking of is Pippa Bennett Warner. Sabra, however you want to pronounce the character's name. I think she's the best of the supporting cast. This episode had a lot more potential than it gave, but it's still very good. I think it does a lot with the concept. I think it's very well done, but like I said, it's a little too self-indulgent for me. It rewards itself a little too much for my liking. We move up to the top 4 now. And at the very top of B, here's my controversial take. It's in B for me. Mummy on the Orient Express. Ooh. No, I changed my mind. I'm moving it up to A. It is an A-tier episode. One thing I noticed in my rewatch, and probably why I had it in B, is apart from how this episode looks, and apart from the episode's concept, and apart from the episode's primary plot, the B plot is very... It's so boring that it's almost non-existent. All of the stuff with... Don't make me look up the character's name. Who's the... I'm going to have to. It is Macy. Okay, I wanted to say Macy, but I didn't want to get it wrong. Clara's interactions with Macy, I don't love. And another thing I don't love about this episode is the way that it handles the ending, right? So we get hints through the entire season of Clara getting ready to leave the TARDIS team. And then in Kill the Moon, the Doctor pushes her over the edge. In this episode, we are supposed to believe at the end of it that Clara is so moved by the Doctor and her experience with the Doctor in this episode that she comes back to the TARDIS. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that's one of the weaker realms, or one of the weaker aspects of this episode. Apart from that, yeah, it's a great episode. The atmosphere is great. Foxes makes an appearance singing Don't Stop Me Now on the train, which is kind of interesting. I think the visuals are very good. The Mummy looks great. The Doctor is funny. Peter Capaldi is able to be funny for one of the first times in this episode. I like the supporting cast. I like the reveal at the end of them all being scientists and this being an experiment. I think this episode does everything really correct. I wish it was a two-parter. The original plan for this episode was the rumor is that it was supposed to be a two-parter where they travel on the Orient Express and kind of see the world almost like if you were to combine like the original Mummy on the Orient Express, not Mummy, the original Murder on the Orient Express, excuse me, or Death on the Nile, or any of those Agatha Christie type novels. If you combine that with like Snowpiercer, right, the movie or the TV show, and they were supposed to kind of travel around, but there's supposed to be this mystery underneath it, and it was supposed to slowly play out. I would have liked that a lot more than what we got. I think that would be, if handled correctly, like an S-tier episode concept, like a double-tier episode concept. What we got is very good. Like I said, the set design is fantastic. The visuals are fantastic. The acting is very good. I don't love Macy. I don't love the B-plot. I don't love how this episode handles the ending with Clara. Apart from that, I'm going to put it in A tier, comfortably. Let's move up now to Flatline. Ooh, no. I changed my mind. Originally I had Listen above Flatline. I'm going to change those. So let's put, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We do have Last Christmas. I just didn't see it here. Okay, yeah, so I'm putting Listen above, and my favorite episode, Series 8 doesn't peak in S tier. It doesn't. Like, we'll talk about at the end of this episode, or at the end of this video, why I don't think it deserves any S tier episodes. Listen. When this episode came out, there was recency bias that many people thought this was the best episode in Doctor Who's history. I don't think it is. I think it has way too many faults. I think it's a little too all over the place. Retrospectively, it doesn't make any sense. The concept is very interesting. The Doctor obsessing about an idea because he's been left on his own too much. That concept is portrayed far better in Heaven Sent. When I first watched Series 8 and 9, my two favorite episodes of all time were Heaven Sent and Listen. And now Heaven Sent is my second favorite episode of all time, and Listen is nowhere near that. Listen was 29th on my list. If I'm dropping it below Flatline, I think it drops on average down to about 30, 31. This episode really doesn't make any sense when you bring in the Timeless Children arc, because we're supposed to believe that early in the Doctor's life, he was instilled with this fear of a monster under his bed. And maybe you can still write that into the Timeless Children arc. I don't know. Let's not talk about Chibnall yet. The Doctor obsessing over a creature through time, or just a concept through time. That's very cool. Clara going back and retrospectively changing the ideas of Danny and then the Doctor is very cool. The visuals in this episode are very good. There's a few too many lens flares for my liking. I think it's a little too J.J. Abrams in its directing. Color correction, same thing. I think Orson Pink is a boring character. Like, Samuel Anderson really shows his colors with the way he portrays Orson Pink. I like the date scene. I do. A lot of people don't. I think the problem with the date scene, or the root problem of the date scene that many people have, comes from the editing of it. If the date scene were longer, I think this would be a better episode. It's intercut very weirdly between the different conversation points. And I think that's part of why it feels rushed, why it feels inconsequential. But I think the date scene does a really good job at giving a framework for the relationship between Clara and Danny. I think all the stuff in the 90s scene is very good. The child acting is what it is, but I like that scene. I really do like that scene. Yeah, I don't, like, the more I think about it, it's like, what about Listen do I really like to put it in A tier? Is it the concept? Is it the acting? Like, I don't know. To be honest with you, because like I'm trying to defend it. I do think Listen is like A tier episode. I do. I can't voice why. Does that make any sense? Like, this is a really poor showing on my part of trying to defend Listen. It's not as good as I used to think it was. It's still very good. I think it is the episode where Peter Capaldi comes into his own as the Doctor. That might be it. I think this is where the 12th Doctor really shines for the first time. That might be why I like it. I'm going to not talk anymore on this episode. Let's talk about Flatline. Flatline is, to me, easily the best episode in Series 8. And a lot of people don't like it because Jenna Coleman takes control. I think the plot is interesting. I think the idea of the TARDIS being reverse the TARDIS is funny in concept. It's played for laughs, but it's also played very seriously. And I think it's written very, very well. This episode was written by Jamie Matheson, who, let me check his writing credits, because if I'm not mistaken, I do really like a lot of his episodes. Mummy on the Orient Express, Flatline. He wrote The Girl Who Died, which we'll talk about next episode. And then he wrote Oxygen. Oxygen's fine. His showing in Series 8, very good. Obviously, both A-tier episodes. I think Clara is very good in this episode. This is the one that gave the nickname Clara Who, right? The monsters, I've heard this stated before, and I completely agree with it. I think the Boneless are possibly the up there, like top 5 best original villains in New Who. Like the idea of a monster that comes from a 2-dimensional plane and has to fit itself into a 3-dimensional plane, like that's a fantastic idea. The visuals of the mosaics on the wall, like the human skin pattern, the human nervous system, fantastic idea. Like visually stunning. I think a little bit of the CGI is a little dodgy. I think some of the doctors, like Peter Capaldi isn't great in this episode. One thing that always throws me off is they filmed this episode out of order, and they also used reshoots. And in between the original shooting and the reshoots, Peter Capaldi got a haircut. So if you watch this episode, if you pay attention, the Doctor's hair changes length throughout the episode. If I'm not mistaken, it's specifically the beginning and end are different than the middle. If I'm not mistaken. It might intercut even more than that, but that's distracting to me, having noticed it. And now hopefully when you watch it, you'll notice it too. But I think Rigsy is compelling to a certain extent. I don't love all of the side characters, but really what stands out about this episode for me is the concept and the way that it's written and the way that it's portrayed. I think it's done very well. I think the solution to the episode, like reviving the TARDIS, is done very tastefully. I think it's very creative. I think it's written very well. But it's still missing that which would propel it to S tier. Like I said, the supporting cast is a little lackluster, but I love Jenna Coleman. I won't deny my biases toward Jenna Coleman. Like, I love Jenna Coleman as an actress. I think she does very well in this episode. But it's not S tier. And that, to me, is the most disappointing thing about Series 8, is it had so much going for it. It has, in most people's opinion, the best actor to ever play the Doctor. It has, in my opinion, the best actress to ever play a companion in the show. It had a decent writing team. Obviously, you see it with the Jamie Matheson episodes. Stephen Moffat is what he is. Visually, it takes a step back from the end of Series 7. It has all of the momentum coming out of the 50th. But it doesn't have any particular episode that's just like, wow. Like, this is Doctor Who. To me, Series 9 has that in droves. So the difference between Series 8 and Series 9, right, to me, look at this pyramid here. Series 8 is very not super great. Not, I mean, is what, like, bad, but, like, isn't super great, isn't super bad, just kind of mid, but not pockets of inconsistent quality. It's very there. It's very consistent in quality, whether it be good or bad. It fits together very well. Series 9, we'll talk about tomorrow, has a lot of pockets of dullness. Very, very high highs, very low lows. And that's the difference between the two. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow. So all in all, Series 8 was disappointing to me. It was the first series I ever watched live as it was airing. I started about halfway through. I can't remember the first episode I ever watched live. It might have been Flatline, to be honest. It might have been Mummy on the Orient Express. I think I watched Mummy on the Orient Express on a rewatch like the week of, and then I saw Flatline live. But that statement right there of me, this being the first series I ever watched live, will really come into effect when we talk about Series 9, because Series 9 was the first full season where I watched every single episode as it aired on BBC America. And my biases for that fact are going to play into my rankings tomorrow. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I mentioned there are going to be links above my head to other channels of mine. In the bottom left hand of your screen is going to be linked to other Doctor Who videos on this channel. Specifically, one I want you to check out, the Doctor Who Complete Timeline, which I will update with the 60th anniversary when that comes out. So go check that out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of my rankings so far of all Series 1 through 8. We will continue through Series 13 as this week goes on, as long as I can get to it. Like I said, it took me about 5 months to record yesterday's video and this one. But until the next time, hope to see you very, very soon. Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff, and we will see you tomorrow for Series 9.